Probably the names of Sergeant Benton and Dorian Malgobard don't mean much to an awful lot of you, but John Levene and Simon Fisher-Becker are two really iconic actors of the Doctor Who world, have been at it for a very, very long time. We're now looking forward to seeing this panel in which both veteran actors are going to tell us some stories about what it is like to be part of the Doctor Who universe, who is, by far the most loved Time Lord of all time. Pardon the pun. Enjoy this presentation with Simon Fisher-Becker and John Levene.
I am not David Tennant. Sorry. I'm Richard Ashton, and I have two fantastic good friends with me. Simon Fisher-Becker. What?
Yes, I was just looking for your friends. Yeah.
Going.
Yeah.
Simon Fisher-Becker, who plays Dorian.
Yes.
The big blue man.
Yes, the big blue man.
The big blue man.
You won't recognise me because I've got hair. Yes.
Well, we really needed to know that, didn't we, ladies and gentlemen?
Is it your own?
For today.
Most of it.
No, that's it.
You have to give it back at the end of the weekend.
I've got it for as long as that. Excellent.
Fantastic. And Simon's good friend, John Levene, otherwise known as the Benton, Mr. Benton, yes. Sergeant Benton.
Yes.
RMS Benton.
Yes,
RSM.
from the classic series of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Who worked alongside John Pertwee.
Yes.
And Tom Baker.
And Troughton.
And
an hour with William Hartnell just before he potted his clogs.
Yeah,
he went.
No. But, and like I say, two great guests. And I've got my able assistant, Liz, doing Amy Pond. Good Pond.
Well, first of all, 50th anniversary. Is anybody involved? And if so, what are your thoughts? And if not, what are your thoughts?
Well, I can tell you, as I've got the biggest mouth, 9 months ago the BBC phoned me up, as I was a little bit of a ripple in the show. And I remember when I first met my agent, I said, I'm John Levene, I'm an actor. He said, don't worry, John, your secret's safe with me. And
I think we all feel we're on a loop.
You did that one.
I know. I had a phone call 8 months ago asking me if I would keep the 22nd, 23rd and 24th of November this year clear. So I said I would. But then I also heard from 5 of my doctor friends that none of them have been involved in anything, and they was in the newspaper saying that the 50th anniversary is dead because they've not asked any of the other doctors to do anything. I think Matt's going to meet David Tennant. I saw a little bit of a shot with the TARDIS.
Yes.
But they asked me to put it in my diary, and obviously all my friends are dead now, apart from Katie Manning. And I said I would do it. But then I got invited. I became a recording artist last year, and I'm off to Hollywood to record my second album. And I went to book my flight, and I said to the travel agent, I ought to not pay for the ticket at this moment, because I got a feeling that something's wrong with the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th of November, which are the 2 studio days I have booked in Hollywood with a whole orchestra, so I can't let them down. So anyway, I ended up getting the head man's name at the BBC, and I booked my ticket, and would you believe it, I had booked the 3 days I was meant to be doing the Doctor Who special. So I phoned up the head of BBC, who I just happened to know, and I said, I've made a mistake in my bookings. And so rather nicely for me, the rumour's gotten out. Oh, first of all, let me just tell you, being in a room with 35 Doctor Who actors doing a special event is as boring as hell. Not because it's not that we have any vanity or ego to feed, because we're all too old for that. But when you're in a room with all the doctors and all the companions, you get 2 minutes each on stage. And to me, that's just pointless. It's utterly pointless for you and for us. So what I'm happy about, for what it's worth, is that the rumour's gotten around that John Levene can't make it because he's in Hollywood recording his second album. And I've gotten more mileage out of that than if I'd have gone to do the actual show. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Simon?
I've been sounded out for the XL, the BBC official convention in November, but they say they don't know what date. But then I was at the official convention in March, 2 Marches ago, and I wasn't booked until the February, so I'm not really expecting to get at the proper.
What is the XL, though, Simon? What is it?
It's the 50th anniversary BBC official convention,
okay,
and it is covering the actual anniversary weekend.
But do you know where is it? I mean,
it's actually
London.
in London.
Earl's Court, most likely.
XL.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's on the DLR line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
so East London. So for that, I might be there. You never know. As for being in any of the Doctor Who specials, I'm in an awkward position because people say, have you done anything? Are you going to be in? And I say, no. And they say, well, you have to say that anyway, don't you? So the answer,
Yes.
So he replied, no.
so the answer is no, and you could think of yes if you wish. But all I can say is that Dorian got a mention in the last episode, to which I did a big thing in the sky. So I hope Dorian appears, but it's up to Moffat and
Will he
his
be just
crew.
ahead? No.
Well, Dorian is ahead of his time, really.
Yes.
Oh!
So,
I wish I'd thought of that.
So we didn't have that one rehearsed.
Personally, I'd love to be in it. So if I'm asked, would you like to be in it? The obvious answer is yes. Have I been asked? Not yet. But these things do tend to happen at short notice because they're still working out storylines and things, whatever they want to do. And of course, somebody could die. So something they could.
Oh, but Simon, you're talking about an actual
Sorry, I looked
series,
at
a
you at
TV
that time,
series.
yeah. Sorry, I looked at you.
I thought it was just a convention, though.
Oh no, it was the it's the. I assumed you were talking about the 50th episode, the 50th anniversary episode.
Well, I'm lost now.
So there we
I
go.
know so little
So
about it.
that's my answer. I hope that wasn't too garbled.
No, it wasn't.
So
Right.
That's it. Yeah.
Now questions, you devil.
Yes.
Doctor Who, obviously, it is very much an institution in this country, and the fact that you guys are here proves that the characters within the series are very much loved, and they all, pretty much all of them, become very iconic. Now, why hasn't Doctor Who taken off in other countries as much as it's taken off in here, apart from the length of time?
Because it's English. Star Trek as American takes off. I mean, when I met Gene Roddenberry, I met him at Universal Studios. I was in Hollywood 22 years, and I nearly got a part in Star Trek. Star Trek? Yeah. Star Wars is the movie, yeah. And all because I didn't have my green card in America at that time. I lost the part. But I would have made $3 million in 2 years because I'd have been the only living actor that had been in Doctor Who and Star Trek, but I missed the part because I didn't have my green card. So your answer to your question, I think, I mean, for example, in Germany, we would watch a German program, but I think it has to be, Doctor Who is in the heart of England, isn't it? It's in our culture now. So I think that's why it doesn't take off big in other countries. I mean, like Dallas does.
I think it's slowly becoming. I know in Germany there is a following, but it's not on the main telly, is that right? You can only get it via the internet?
No, it's on the telly.
Oh, is it? It is. That's good. So it'll gradually. So, and I can only judge things from fan mail, and I get fan mail from all over the place, and I get fan mail from countries that don't actually screen Doctor Who, purely because people can sort of get it download it.
It's on the telly and it's
Yeah. So it is a worldwide phenomenon, but it doesn't appear from us looking at this side to be as great. I know in America it's got exactly exactly the same number of viewers, but because America's such a bigger place, proportionately it's considered lower. But it's growing all the time, and Gallifrey Convention grows each year, and I think they're having to think of going to a different venue next year.
I mean, on the lines of the German thing, I know that I'm in contact with people called from XCOM.
Yes.
And they do a big event in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw one actually, the conference centre where they were actually doing it, and no word of a lie, it was jam-packed, and the place was massive, really big, and double lead, and it was row upon row. And the German following is actually growing and growing and growing.
Yes, which is nice, which is lovely. And I've been invited to Belgium, and I've been invited to well, I'm going to Australia, but it's already quite big in Australia. But I'm just thinking of countries that you wouldn't imagine would pick it up. Italy, I've been invited to, and Dublin, to be sure.
Dublin.
Yeah. So it is a worldwide phenomenon, and so it's great to be associated with it. And it will. I don't think it'll ever stop. It might have ebbs and tides, as they say, but that's up to the makers of the programme to keep it going, and your good selves. I mean, it's great to see you all, and thank you very much, for making the effort to come to these conventions, because we'd look rather stupid if you weren't here.
Okay, another question, and please. I think you're bursting with them now. Yes, thank you, sir, and then we'll come to you with the glasses. Gentleman in the white hat.
Do you want to get the mic?
Obviously, units was portrayed as a positive military force.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear from the MOD or from squaddies or just any soldiers who reported back that maybe recruiting has been uplifted by the presence of this?
Well, yes, in answer to your question, two things happened about that. First of all, when my character started and when I became quite big, we had a phone call from Edinburgh Castle, and the Brigadier General of the Scottish military thought that I saluted like a fairy. and so how do you threaten a Scotsman? I mean, you know, and he invited me. I'm not a drinker, and they invited me to Edinburgh Castle, and they said, we're going to teach you, you little limey fairy, how to salute properly. As you know, the English salute, unlike American, which is so sloppy, but the English salute is the longest way up and the shortest way down. Did you know that? I didn't until about a year ago. So, you know, and so I went to Edinburgh Castle, and I tell you, it's the hardest job I've ever done. 50 drunken Scotsmen trying to teach me how to salute was really, you know. But, of course, the guy that was going to play Benton originally was a karate expert. The trouble is, the first time he saluted, he killed himself. No, I like that. Yeah, so anyway, yeah, we had, I mean, most people wanted to be like Benton, and I've just read about myself in a book, which we don't read very often. But I like to think that my character was helpful, brave, had integrity, and all the things I wanted to be. I mean, I've ended up being the man I wanted to be, honest, true, and loyal. Never betray my wife, never betray my friends, and I do demand loyalty in my friendships. But then my friendships are fabulous. I've got some great friends, some very influential people. The one nice thing about being a celebrity is you do get the chance to meet some really big people. Some of them are just not very nice, I nearly swore them. But a lot of them are nice. Like, my green card came from the White House. I was so popular in America because I was there for 22 years. They phoned up the White House and I got my green card. But I didn't get it soon enough to get all the movies that I was offered. So really, it was like bad timing. But yes, we made quite an impression. And there is a recruitment film out, which again, I've only just seen, where they show me talking about joining UNIT. But you see, also I'd be the brigadier now. The only thing I don't understand about the new series is if I were the producer, I've been a producer now for 29 years, but I would have thought they would have had one of UNIT back just as a pure nod to the iconic. I mean, we were so big, and yet they've not come near us. Nothing, we've heard nothing. And I just thought even one episode with Benton or Yates or Katie Manning, I know she did the Elizabeth Sladen thing, but I don't think they just don't like the old actors. I think they just want to keep it fresh and new. But I'm telling you now, if Benton or Yates turned up in one episode, the viewing figures would go up by at least 1/3, just for the pure love of what we created back in those days. And remember, my self-esteem was right down in my shoes. I had no courage. I was fearful of other actors because I had no acting as a training as an actor. And there was a time when Barry Letts, who was the best producer that they've ever had, apart from Russell T Davies, who I thought regenerated Doctor Who so beautifully, and then it's in the hands of this other man now, which is not so good. But Russell T Davies and Julie Gardner, I thought they were brilliant. But yeah, so UNIT had quite an effect, and it was lovely being in it. I don't mind telling you, every day, apart from when Tom Baker took over, that became miserable. But in fact, it was like death. But that was, we all felt that. That's not just me. I mean, he destroyed pretty much all of us. But John Pertwee was 5 years of utter joy, and of course we were big in those. I mean, we had 180 million viewers in those days. Which was
before satellite and all that.
Before satellite, we were, you know, but you notice how modest we are. I mean, well, first of all, there's nothing to be big-headed about. I mean, an actor is an actor. You know, you go on, you play your part, you go home and worry about the next part. But the fact that I ended up in Doctor Who as a non-actor still stuns me to this day. But then on the other hand, I had John Pertwee and Roger Delgado right behind my back. And all the times I went in and had a little tear because of my fear, I had a father that hated me. And so I had a very, 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 very unhappy childhood. In fact, my dad was so tough, he used to stab us goodnight. And, yeah, so I had a miserable childhood. So ending up in Doctor Who made my life. And Hollywood was okay as well, but I'm much happier back in England, I have to say. So did that answer your question, sir? Yeah. Okay, that would be £5, thank you. Any more, please? There was another gentleman, yes.
What is your favourite Doctor Who story over the last 50 years, and why?
Oh, you're so demanding. No. No.
Come here.
Yes, I was going to say, Simon. Let Simon in
go, guys. Yes.
It's a Patrick Troughton story, and I'm trying to remember. It's something to do with playing with the mind. Somebody help me with the title.
Mind games, war games. Mind robber.
It was the way where you got Rapunzel, and all nursery rhyme characters in it as well.
Blimey.
The only reason I don't really remember the title is because I haven't watched Troughton in my adult life, and I watched it as a child, and I was young, very young.
Yes.
So, but that stuck in my mind. The Sea Devils stick in my mind,
Sea Devils, yeah.
and my grandmother has a photograph of me hiding from the Cybermen. I have to, naturally, every story that Dorian in is brilliant. But I love it all. But I think, I don't know why, I've always been fascinated with sci-fi. My grandfather was an engineer, and he was born in 1909. And I remember as a young kid, he was telling me, oh yes, we'll get to Mars. He said, absolutely. What? You really think we'll get to Mars all that way? He said, yes, we just need to find the way to do it. And he said, we will find it. And he said something quite significant to me. He said, we will find it, but it might take a little longer than we think. That's all. And it's absolutely true. I mean, H.G. Wells was talking about flying machines, wasn't he? Yeah. And War of the Worlds and all that. And it came along a little later, that's all. And it was likewise, I had a great aunt who lived to 101. And she was a huge Star Trek fan. And I don't know whether it was to do with the generations that were born between 1900 and 1920. But they absolutely believe fervently that the sci-fi stuff will come.
Happen, yes.
So it will come. And I just hope, I would like to have a TARDIS of some kind to actually see.
Not in mine.
To actually see. So I've always fascinated with sci-fi, and Doctor Who as a kid, it gripped me totally. And I would say, I'm going to cause controversy now, but I thought some of the stories of the classics were brilliant, and actually in some ways better than some of the stories today. And I think what it is they had to focus more on the story, because in 1963 they didn't have the technology that we have today. And so what's happened now, of course, is the technology has caught up with the fantasy, so we're halfway there. And after all, with Star Trek, if I don't tread on anybody's consciences here, Captain Kirk had a flip phone. Did you know?
Yeah.
To beam me up,
True.
Scotty, he had a flip phone. The big screen that we talked to, that's a video phone. We've all got our cam now. So and now at the age of 51, I can see what my grandfather was saying. He got to the age that he could see that things are plausible. Absolutely. And it's the plausibility of everything that I think that keeps Doctor Who going. Although it seems ridiculous, to some people who've got no imagination. The fact that it's plausible is what keeps it going.
Yes. One teeny addition to that, 8 years ago, because I lived in Hollywood, I did 9 of the Gallifrey shows, because I was there. But one day a man, a little younger than me, came up to me and said, Mr. Levene, I just want to thank you and John Pertwee. 31 years ago, I was a young man who had an imagination, and I wanted to be a scientist. And he said, when I watch you, and you see, I'm very lucky. John and I gelled. I don't know what it was about John Pertwee and I. He didn't get on with his son at the time, and I didn't get on with my son. And I think John really took me on as his surrogate son. And remember, I picked him up every day from work. I lived in Putney in London. He lived in Barnes, where all the rich people lived. He was 4 doors away from Tony Hopkins, and next door to him was Diana Rigg. And I always remember trying to see her through the window. And But long story short, this bloke came up to me one day. He was a bald-headed chap. I don't know why I mentioned that, but he said, I want to thank you for my career. And I said, what did you end up doing? He said, well, you and John inspired me, because he liked the truth of Benton's character, and he liked the truth of John Pertwee's interpretation of the Doctor. Anyway, to cut a long story short, he helped build the moon lander, and he's now involved. He's the 3rd engineer for the Mars lander, and he's made 3 special parts for the rocket ship that is going to Mars. And he said, my name is going to be on Mars. And so, as Simon said, yeah, we will be there. And with 800 million planets in one solar system, how arrogant that we should think we're the only ones, Good question, sir. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, sir.
Sort of following on from that, do you think science fiction's almost evolved into being part of sort of science thought now? Now that there is that link between fiction and reality, do you think it's almost sort of overlapping with the realms of science sort of thinking and research now?
Oh, blimey. Oh, that is such a complicated question. You
You
need an A-level to answer this.
Mother is the... No, what's it?
Mother is the thing of invention.
Oh, I don't know. What does it say?
Oh,
Mother of invention.
Necessity.
Necessity is the mother.
Necessity is the mother of invention, and a lot of what would be considered sci-fi 50 years ago is actual reality now, isn't it? So, I mean, we see injections are not in some cases it's not injection. It is just a thing that goes.
Yeah, needles.
And you got the patches for nicotine and things like that. Well, 40 or 50 years ago, you didn't have that. So you're absolutely right. It is sort of crossing over, and so it's the imagination for sci-fi of the future which will become our reality.
And if I may just say, by the way, just in terms of humour, because most humour has a lot of truth in it. I was a producer for a long time, and I did a conservation convention where British companies like Rover and Rolls-Royce were asked to use less gas, and it was called a gas conservation conference, and I was there, and they had invited 3 scientists, one from America, one from France, and one from Ireland, and they asked the American scientist what he thought was the greatest invention ever in the human race, and he thought the video camera. Because you could take it to the moon, you could take it to the bottom of the ocean. And so he thought the video camera was the most incredible invention of the last 200 years. I think it was a German or Swiss sign, I'm not sure, but he thought that the rocket, space, the aeroplane that we can go and get into another country in just 10 hours. And the strangest thing is the Irish scientist got up and he thought the thermos flask was the single greatest invention in the world. And when asked why, he said, well, it keeps hot things hot, it keeps cold things cold, but how does it know? And I sort of thought that answers it all. Another question, please.
There's a company called Big Finish that do audio dramas.
Yes.
Forecast audio.
Asking the wrong man here. Go on. I just finished my first one, which I didn't enjoy at all. The studio was like the Black Hole of Calcutta. And mine comes out next week. It's called A Council of War, and they've made me a James Bondy kind of character, and I fall in love at the end of it. How strange is that? Because Benton never got the babe, did he? Dalek, Cyberman, anything but a woman. No wonder we're so weird. So yeah, Big Finish. I don't know much about them. I know, I don't know how their product sells, but mine comes out next week, and I suppose it'll be along with just all the others. I mean, when you're one of 100, it's not very impressive, but. That's all I know about Big Finish.
I've done 2 stories, one of which came out in February. I think it was called Gallifrey 5, and I was the Minister of Science. Something like that. And I've done another story, which is an Iris Wild Time, so in which I am
forgotten what it was.
A psychotic elevator.
Oh,
what?
Yes, and
that must have been a bit up and down.
The working title was Going Down, but I think they have to rethink that. So I don't know what it's going to be called, but it's out in the summer. But Big Finish for me is an example. For 20 years, I wrote to Big Finish because being a Doctor Who fan and a lovey, I thought, let me speak forth and and meet the Doctor. They weren't interested in me at all. Total disappointment.
Nor me, Simon.
No, absolutely not interested at all. Then when I got Dorium, my agent said to me, oh, well, we'll try you with Big Finish. So she wrote to Big Finish, and all she got back was this email that said, we can't use Simon because we haven't got the license to use Dorium yet. So I said to her, well, that doesn't matter. I could be any character. It's audio. Right? So I said, and then... Good fortune, which being a lovey is 90% of your life. Gary Russell was at LA when I was there, and he asked me if I wanted to do Big Finish. I said yes, and that was in the February. Then good fortune again that we were both at the official BBC convention in Cardiff in the March. And good fortune again, he was sat next to me like this, and he just leant over to me. He said, has Big Finish been in contact with you yet?
If that's my agent, tell her will.
Yeah, and I said no, and he just tapped me on the knee and he said, leave it to me. And then about 6 or 7 weeks later, he phoned me up, and that's when I did the psychotic elevator. Ironically, I did that in the April. That doesn't come out until this summer, but the Gallifrey 5 I did in October or November last year, and it came out in February, so who knows the logic of things. But so I've done 2. I had a really good time but quite frightening because people just assume you know what you're doing.
Yes.
You get to a certain... That's what I found. See, up until I got Dorium, I was just a fat idiot, right? I get Dorium, and everybody just assumes you know exactly what you're doing, and so you get asked to do all sorts of things. But the danger is then that sometimes the directors don't direct you. They seem to be happy with whatever you offer.
Yes.
Whereas really, the lovely paranoia wants you to say, well done, Simon, thank you, that's exactly what we wanted. Because they don't say anything. And it's really odd. And that was the only smidgen thing with Gary Russell. He did invite me to do the stuff, but there was no praise or anything. You just other than thank you,
yeah,
and of course that thank you,
and a very small
and of course your paranoia saying was that
good or bad or
was that thank you, you did really well, or was that thank you?
But Simon, I got halfway.
Why did I book you?
I got halfway through my script and I suddenly lost it, and I said I can't do this.
Oh.
And I had to do 5 different voices.
Oh, yeah.
Now, John Pertwee had once told me, as you know, John was famous. You young people won't have any idea of this, but John was a brilliant voice man. He had over 25 voices. And John taught me. Now, I've just played back my own recording. I recorded my own voice. And I did I must be honest with you, when I heard my own recording back, I was amazed that, because remember, we're not all full of confidence. I mean, we get days when an actor lives a dreadful life in one sense, because every day is this a day I'm going to be found out? Is this a day it's all over? But when I played back the voices, John had taught me that all you have to do, for example, if you hold your jaw, like if you put your bottom jaw above your thing, you simply change the voice. Or, in other words, whatever you do with your mouth, it changes. And John would do a voice where he'd move his jaw to the left just to make it sound. And so I had to do these 5 voices, and I'm in the middle of the studio, and some of the words in the script, I didn't even know what the bloody words were.
And you get tongue-tied.
You do.
And after about 3 hours, you really have had it.
But were you in that dirty, filthy studio where it was so dark down a corridor?
Oh, no.
It was an ex-slaughterhouse. Did you know that? It was where they killed animals. And now I think they're killing actors.
We were in little booths. I remember we were in little booths, which was
little tiny booths,
yes,
80 degrees of heat, and they've never cleaned the microphone. They've never washed anything, and it was so dirty. And I went in there, and it was full of filth. My little cubicle, and because I'm old now, and I don't care what anybody thinks, because when you get to 70, you can say shit. So. And I walked in, and I'm a bit of a tidy bloke, like most of us are. I like to make sure my nails are clean and my shoes are polished. And I walked into the studio on this very hot day in London. I don't know what year it was. Well, I mean, it was last year. But I walked into the actual cubicle, and it was, you know, if you took a big fan from a movie set and threw 500 newspapers at it, it would blow the newspapers into every crevice of the way it's going, you know, like in a special effects film. I walked into my cubicle. Now, I didn't expect any favour, because I know my place in Doctor Who. I'm not a star. I'm not the most... I know my place. I'm down the cast list, and that's where you stay. But anyway, I walked into the little cubicle, which Simon's just mentioned. There were 5 of them. The lady, my leading lady, was a beautiful actress, I must say, from Being Human. Her name was Sinead something. I don't know if you watch Being Human. I don't see that. But anyway, long story short, I walked in my cubicle, and it was filthy. And I said, why haven't you cleaned it out? Now, I don't know whether you know the studio manager, who looked very grubby to me. He just picked up the stuff and threw it out into the room, right in my eye line. So for 8 hours, I've got this. Anyway, I just didn't enjoy the experience. Most people do, but I just didn't. So maybe I'm not cut out for it.
Being a Doctor Who fan and meeting Lala Ward and everybody else, I was a bit intimidated. And people say you can't be intimidated, but I was intimidated at first until I got going. But then not to get any sort of feedback immediately.
It can hurt a bit, doesn't it?
It's just weird, but you just learn that's how it is. And then they'll ask you to do it differently, and then you say, they didn't like what I did. And so that adds to your fret and more cops appear.
So how does that compare to, say, when you worked on Doctor Who, the current series, working alongside Alex Kingston, etc.?
Well, I was very lucky. Alex Kingston was actually quite a sweetie, but she was having difficulty with her lines, because the lines are glorious, but as I said before, you get tongue-tied. And I said to her, would you like me to sort of go through your lines with you? And she said, no, I'll be all right. And so that's fine. So we didn't actually get to talk much, because we were each of us were saying, the line is this, we mustn't fuck it up, but she was as nervous as I was, which was really lovely to know. But Matt Smith is delightful, and how he remembers half his lines, I have no idea.
Some actors have
probably
just...
got a little slot.
Well, no, because as you know, he speaks very, very quickly and clearly, right, at about 90 miles an hour, right? And when I was doing my head in the box routine, it was just him and me. But sometimes between the takes, they had to move the camera thing. So they'd say, 20 minutes, right? And of course, I was just left in the box. And Matt would then be pulled away. Now, the week that we did the filming of the Head in the Box sequence was the weekend after he got back from New York doing publicity in America. So when you imagine the jet lag he must have had to deal with, trying to remember all these lines, and then between takes being taken off to either rehearse another scene for another episode, or to do an interview or do more photographs, and then he'd come back and he'd realise, and it was only then that he realised that I'd been left with my head in the box with the door closed. You see? And then oh, sorry, go, and then he'd then tell everybody off, sort of, But so he was the only one who thought of me, but God, it was hot in that box.
I must just share one quick story with John Pertwee. A lot of fans love this story. Very briefly, when you have one line, there are very few shows I had one line in, but one line is more difficult to remember sometimes than a whole ream. And I'm lucky, the one thing I had about all the other actors is I had a photographic memory, and I just used to look at it once and I'd know it. But once I looked at it 3 or 4 times, it would then become confusing. And one episode, I've forgotten which story it was in, but John Pertwee was in the laboratory in his gorgeous velvet jacket. And I had this one line, and we rehearsed it for 2 weeks, which is ridiculous. But my line was, I walk into the laboratory, and John's doing what he usually does, and I have to walk in and say, excuse me, doctor, there's a phone call for you. And he said, who is it, Benton? I said, I don't know, doctor, he wouldn't leave his name. Now, you know, don't you, that when an actor dries, there's only 2 things they say. They either say, oh, Jesus Christ, or the other word, which we're not allowed to mention here, but it begins with F. And I never forget this. I was standing, because you know the PA, producer's assistant, comes up and says, Simon, you're on next, and it's a scene where you do this, and they give you your first line, because it's very tense sometimes, especially when we had politicians in the BBC studio, because we were up against it all the time. All of our stories were about something going on in the world. And anyway, long story short, I remember going home and thinking, right, hello, doc, there's a phone call for you. Who is it, Ben? I don't know, he wouldn't leave his name. Well, on the night, we had, I don't know whether it was Margaret Thatcher, one of the big politicians was up there, and they were watching, and we all got a little bit edgy, because we knew we were going to make the papers the next day. So anyway, I walk in, and this is John Pertwee as a genius. It sounds impressive though, Richard.
It's my agent, sorry.
And long story short, I walked in and I said, excuse me, doctor, there's a call for you. He said, who is it, Ben? And I forgot the line. I said, oh, Jesus Christ. He said, oh, put him through. And they've actually got it on tape. I mean, Jesus, oh, put him through. I thought that was John. Working with him was it was every man's dream.
Now, in telling that story, John used a very interesting word. Rehearsal. Because the only rehearsal I ever got, and I have to say most of the telly I do now is whilst you're walking to the set, you might bump into the other actors you're working with. The idea, I remember I did an episode of One Foot in the Grave, and we had 1 week's rehearsal for that. But no, with Doctor Who, it's if we happen to see each other, we'll go through the lines, and between takes, we'll sort of run the lines together again. Do you want to do it that way this time? Do you want to do it this way this time? But there's no actual rehearsal as you would imagine it to be. And it's very strange. And when I first experienced that, I was thrown totally. Because when you're at drama college, you have 3 weeks to imagine what it's like to be a brick. So the idea you don't actually have a proper rehearsal is quite spooky. Now, it has its pluses as well, because you are more focused, you then become a little more spontaneous. Because the danger of too much rehearsal is that it can become a little routine-y. But it's scary, because then on top of everything else, they'll say, oh, on this take, can you not say yellow, can you say green? Okay, I mustn't say yellow. I said, And you come to say, and it says it was this yellow 6. So I have to say it's this green 6. And of course you go to say it, and you say green, but your brain
is
says
saying yellow.
No, it should be yellow. Very strange. And particularly if you get. I had a run of doing corporate videos which were medical based, and the gobbledygook you got to remember, right? So you're fretting on the way there, and it's the classic case, in the car, you're word perfect. As soon as you walk through the door, your brain's gone blah.
Yes.
Right? And then they'll say, oh, we've changed scene 3. And what they've changed is just a few words. So it actually is very similar. But because they're using technical jargon and medical jargon, it's very important that you say the right one. That's a nightmare. And again, no rehearsal,
So in other words, it's harder than you think. Acting isn't.
But now I know that's how it's done. I'm prepared for it. But when it first happened, they also assume that's what's going to happen. They just, well, of course there's not going to be rehearsal. Of course, yeah. And they look at, can we just rehearse this bit? And the people do.
Weird.
But don't you do like a read-through?
Well, a read-through is very different. But with Doctor Who, let's take A Good Man Goes to War.
Yes.
Yes, there was a read-through, and that was about 2 weeks before we actually started filming. Well, in that 2 weeks, they could have rewritten it totally. Now, as it happens, for me, for Dorian, there were only a few minor changes, so that was okay. But in the read-through, of course, we had a false ending. So only those involved with the revelation in A Good Man Goes to War actually knew what was happening. And apparently they only knew the morning beforehand. So I knew nothing. I just thought it was what it was in the original script.
I have a question for you. I didn't see the last episode when we're supposed to find out the Doctor's real name.
Bob.
Oh, yeah.
You're joking. No, it's not, dude. What?
Bob.
It's not.
Bob's your uncle. Fanny's your aunt.
What was it then? Did anybody hear it? See
No,
it?
it's not revealed.
It's not revealed.
No.
It's
because isn't it
John Smith.
isn't it
That's what we all say.
Dr. Song says it behind the door.
Yes.
It said out of vision. So we still.
It would give away too much mystery.
Yeah.
But I thought, didn't it say in the newspaper they're going to reveal the Doctor's real name?
Yes, but that's all the publicity.
Oh, okay.
It's
Oh,
a
God, I
government
should have
project.
known that, shouldn't
Yeah. So,
Any more questions?
Simon. Hello. What was the original scripted ending?
Tell us.
Spoilers.
Come on,
No,
Simon.
the original ending was actually they kept a little bit of it in the Revelation. It was the crib with the Doctor's name written on the side, right? See, and so it was just there. So if you can read Gallifreyan, you'll know what his name is. So, and his name is. Dun, 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 dun. There we go.
Yeah, any more questions?
Yes.
Yes, you get a mic. I get a mic and everything. That's never a good thing. Never give a man with this kind of moustache a mic. My question is, in your acting careers, you've probably been asked to do some incredibly strange things. Out of all of the things you've been asked to do, what is the strangest?
I can tell you mine.
But the whole thing is strange, is it not? Awkward.
I've had David Tennant on my back wheeling a fish.
Yes, yeah.
That was
I'm just trying to think. There are so many different weird things. I had to deliver a line doing a bungee jump.
What?
Yeah, and I won't do it again. Actually, no, it's a classic example. I can tell you this story. Ready for another story?
Yes.
Right, that was it. A good friend of mine was London's town crier, Peter Moore, and he was booked to attend the Rosa Tralee Festival in Ireland. And this particular year, he was double booked, he could go, so I went in his place. So I went as his deputy. Right? And every day I met different people. Absolutely. Mr. Town Crier, they say, would you like to do a bungee jump? And inside I'm saying, absolutely no. Right? But I don't want to say no. So I said, well, I suppose if you're doing it to raise charity, I might consider it. Right? And the next day, Mr. Town Crier, we're going to raise money for blah, blah, blah. What do you well, okay, I'd really only prefer to do it if there's good publicity, so you can raise the money. Mr. Town Crier, RTE, and they're going to come along, blah, blah, blah. And so in the end I had to do it, because, you know, I'd put it off, and it was horrible. I was petrified, because it's only something like that that I become conscious of my size, because I can imagine it going down and snapping, right? Anyway, I had to do it, and they tied my Town Crier hat on so it wouldn't fall off. And I'm trying to remember the name of the charity now, but it was some Irish charity, and I was asked, because it was going to be on camera, is just to call out the charity name as I was
plunging to your death,
plunging to my doom, right? And where this was, they had all sorts. It was like a country fair, really. So there was all sorts of things going on, and I did find the jolt was the thing I didn't quite expect, right? And really, my eyes felt as if they'd gone out on stalks, and that was horrible. So I'll never do that again. Then what I didn't actually expect was when you come back up, you then go in a different direction. So although they've got the crash mats down in case something goes, yeah, see, so no, I head down because they tied my feet together and I'd had me on a harness, see, and I went down, and I must admit the actual flying aspect of it was actually rather nice. I did enjoy that. But it was the jolt where my eyeballs went like this. I didn't like. But then when I came back up, I then found myself heading towards the Donkey Derby, and it took forever. And it was going boing, boing, boing. It wasn't just boing, boing, boing like that. That's what I didn't take for. So that was a really weird thing to do. Another time, I had to do a commercial to advertise Toyota car, the RAV4. And I was dressed up as a sumo wrestler, and I had a lot to cover, shall we say. So I was very conscious that was a bit odd. But the whole thing, I really shaving my head and painting myself blue is really bizarre.
Yeah,
you have to accept.
When you think about it.
Yeah, when you think about it. But no, but the whole existence of a lovey is very strange. I mean, the real plus is, I mean, there's part of me now, the kid inside me now is thinking, oh my God, there's Sergeant Benton sitting not too far from me, meeting lots of great people, working with some fantastic other actors as well. And the real spin-off for me here is being here at a convention, meeting the fans. I absolutely love it. In some ways, it's better than being in the show. And I've got loads that are on Facebook, and I get to chat with them as well. And but it's weird. It's weird. Because as I said before, Doctor Who, everybody just thought I was an idiot. You know, I earned a good living.
No, you're not.
No, I earned it. See, what my thin friends who were actors couldn't understand was how I was always working. I always worked because you know, I was always, but I was never famous. Whereas thin actors would only do something if it's going to help my career, and of course. Bollocks. I mean, there are those who are able to, if you go back and think about it, they did follow a career path. But the industry is so fickle, I think that's the right word.
I think that is the right word.
It's so fickle, and a lot of it is luck. It is, an awful lot of it is luck. So any aspiring performer or artist, I would say, build your craft so you're ready when luck comes along. Now, what I have learned is luck comes along quite often, but you don't realise that.
No, you don't see it at the time.
And when you miss your luck, you think you're doom and gloom. But it is the same with any profession, I would say, to a certain degree, that an opportunity comes along because you're in the right place at the right time. But it is a bizarre way to earn your living. You know, I come along to these things, I get paid to talk all day. It's brilliant. And I want to thank you. You've asked some very different questions.
Yeah, they've been good. They've been good.
So I'll go away later and I think, oh, I could have mentioned this and I could have mentioned that. Yeah. Anyway.
Any more questions? Yes, sir.
I'll ask a games-related question. Are there any games that you've played that help you become an actor or help you in your remembering lines or anything like that?
No, I never played games. When we were poor, in fact, we were so poor, we thought knives and forks were jewellery. And we never had games. My mum and dad would never have them in their thing. The only game I played was Monopoly once, and the person that won was one of those people that wants to win under any circumstance. And I thought, well, if that's gaming, I'd rather be a deep-sea diver, you know. So no, I'm sorry, but apart from a game of poker I used to enjoy, I've never been a games man. I've never understood it. That's why.
When you say games, are you meaning the computer games of today, or games generally?
Like memory-based games or role-playing games, or even just what your favourite game is?
I think as kids we played all sorts of games and were learning things without knowing it. It was very subconscious. I mean, being in a football team, people laugh at me now when I say it, but I used to play football and rugby. To work as a team, and to learn to work as a team, know your place and which cog you are in a team, is actually vitally important.
Yeah.
But you don't actually. And that's something you acquire rather than learn. Does that make sense? And that's very important. Any team game. Monopoly was quite good, handling money and all that sort of thing. Because real money, just my fingers are too wide. It doesn't happen really. Other games that we play. I mean, when you went to drama college, you played silly, stupid games, something really. But mind exercising. No, I really. The only thing is learning lines. If you can learn lyrics of a song, then you will find your way of learning prose. Because everything, particularly if it's well written, has some sort of rhythm to it. Yeah. And then there are little tricks. Yeah, all right, that word ends in an E and the next word starts with an E. So that sort of helps as well. But the biggest thing, and particularly with a script, is as long as you actually understand what you're having to say, then learning it is a lot easier. But the trick is trying to understand it, because sometimes it's real gobbledygook and you have no idea. And technical terms for an actor who really is only I'm an actor. I've got such a the weather. Oh dear, I can't. Oh, there was a black cat. Oh, right. So then, sort of have technical terms that are 5 syllables long, and you're expected to deliver them as if you have done for the last 25 years, is actually quite difficult. So you have to rely on people to teach you how the words are actually said, and then you find they argue amongst themselves. So, but if you can learn the lyrics of songs, then you should have no problem. But for me personally, it's the worst part of it. Is trying to learn the lines, and I find doing something else helps me. So often when I'm doing the washing up or the ironing or something else, and then the phone will ring. But I was like, yes, have you brought me a pretty toy? Doing something else whilst learning a line is very good actually.
Any more questions?
Before we finish, because I know that we're running out of time, there have been recently an awful lot of calls for the Doctor to be an actress and not an actor, for the next generation of the Doctor to be a woman. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's a very good idea, isn't it? It could be a bit of a drag, but...
Liz would be good for the role.
I think
it would be excellent.
That's not a bad idea. I never even thought about it.
We've had female Time Lords, have we not? Because Romana was a Time Lord, was she not? So the concept of a female Time Lord is already there. Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see how it would happen.
Women run the world anyway, so why don't we just...
Well, the Rowan Atkinson one.
Because I understand Francis Latour was in line. Was being considered when they actually chose Sylvester McCoy. So I learned that quite recently because I worked with her. So it has obviously been thought about.
Joanna Lumley was the Rowan Atkinson one.
Yes. I mean, many years ago, I think Joanna Lumley would be brilliant.
Hugh Grant.
I've got no reason not for it to be female, because then you've got the concept that Time Lords change sex, but then they don't have sex, but they do have sex, don't they? Because because they refer about they talk about their parents as well, don't they? So they must have sex. So
Tennant talked about his children.
Indeed, yes. And Matt Smith, of course, has referred to his grandchildren, which means he must have had children to get grandchildren, unless, of course, there's some wibbly-wobbly timey-wimey thing. That'll tell us that concept's gone out the window. But the idea of a female doctor is not a problem, but you need somebody with real gravitas.
Yes.
That would be... But you need that for whoever's the new doctor. And I love this idea they've done, introducing John Hurt. Brilliant. And dying to hear how they're fitting it all in. I've read stories of what they think, but see, all these stories out here, you've got to remember the BBC sow them out as well, you know, just to keep the interest going. But John Hurt's a brilliant actor anyway. And what I thought was fantastic was he said not one word, but just look at him, his deportment, the expression on his face, you know that guy is in angst, isn't he?
Yeah.
You just know that. So you know he's not a happy one. So...
Well, Jacqueline Pierce, is one of the stars of Blake 7, has been living with John Hurt and his wife in London just before she went back to Africa, where she's living on a monkey farm of all places. Imagine living on a monkey farm.
Pays peanuts.
Well,
there you go. There you go.
Well, have we run out of time? Is it? Right, well, can I thank everybody for coming and having thrown some questions at two fabulous, fantastic chaps.
Thank you, Richard.
Very good friends of mine. So, big round of applause for Simon Fisher-Becker.
Thank you.
John Levene.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.